You know, sometimes life gets so loud, so chaotic, that you stop hearing the one voice that actually matters. The world keeps screaming at you, telling you what you should be, what you should want, how you should live. And in all that noise, you forget. There's something bigger, something that's been trying to reach you all along. Not in the chaos, not in the crowd, but in those quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts. Right now, that voice is calling out to you, whispering, almost demanding that you listen. Because this isn't just chance. It isn't just timing. This message was meant for you, and only you. Silence the noise to hear the truth. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But you and I both know it's not. The world has a funny way of making sure you're always distracted, always busy, always too tired, too worried, too entertained to stop for even 1 second and listen. People wake up and the first thing they do is grab their phone. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Noise. They walk outside, cars blaring, people shouting, music pounding in their ears. More noise. Then they go through their day chasing deadlines, chasing approval, chasing whatever the world told them was important this week. And by the time they finally collapse at night, their mind is so loud that they can't even sleep without drowning themselves in more noise. You see, that's the trick. If the world can keep you distracted long enough, you'll never hear the truth. You'll never hear that voice that's been trying to break through the chaos. The truth doesn't come wrapped in neon lights or loud explosions. No, the truth is subtle, quiet, patient. It whispers. And the problem is, when everything around you is screaming, you can't hear a whisper. That whisper might be telling you who you really are. It might be pointing out that the life you're living isn't the one you were made for. It might be warning you, guiding you, protecting you. But the world drowns it out every single day with noise disguised as importance. And here's the secret. People like the noise, because silence is terrifying. In silence, you're forced to face yourself. You're forced to confront what's broken inside of you, what you've been ignoring, what you've been running from. That's why people will do anything, to avoid silence. They'll fill every second with chatter, with entertainment, with endless distractions. They're terrified of what they might hear when everything finally goes quiet. But you can't escape forever. The truth is still there, waiting. And it won't shout, it won't fight for your attention the way the world does. It waits for you to choose to listen, to silence the noise, to step away from the circus, the crowd, the chaos, and sit with yourself. That's when you'll hear it. That's when the whisper becomes clear, sharp, undeniable. But most people never get there. They're too addicted to the chaos, too comfortable in the noise. They say they want answers. They say they want peace. They say they want direction. But the second it gets quiet, they run. They'd rather hear lies shouted at them than truths whispered to them. And the irony is, deep down, they know. They know the noise is fake. They know it's all a performance, a distraction, a game. They laugh when they're not happy. They smile when they're broken. They post pictures pretending their life is perfect, while inside they're screaming. That's the power of noise. It covers up the emptiness for a little while. But the emptiness doesn't go away. It only grows. And eventually, it gets too loud to ignore. Then comes the breaking point. The moment where the noise no longer works. The moment where silence creeps in, whether you like it or not. And in that moment, you finally realize the truth was there the whole time, waiting for you to stop running, waiting for you to listen. But tell me this, why wait for everything to fall apart before you listen? Why let the noise run your life when you have the choice right now to shut it out? All it takes is the courage to turn everything off, to sit in the stillness, to let the silence press in. That's where the truth hides. That's where it reveals itself. Not in the noise, never in the noise. Always in the silence. Pain is a message, not a punishment. But people don't like to hear that. They'd rather believe pain is some cruel trick, some unfair punishment dropped into their lives for no reason. They cry out, "Why me? What did I do to deserve this?" As if life sits up there keeping a scoreboard of sins and rewards. No, that's not how it works. Pain isn't here to destroy you. It's here to talk to you. It's a signal, a language, a messenger. And the problem is most people never bother to translate it. They just suffer, complain, and drown in their misery, blind to the fact that the pain is trying to show them something they couldn't see any other way. Think about it, pain grabs your attention in ways comfort never could. When you're happy, when you're comfortable, when everything feels easy, you don't question much, do you? You go along with it, blind, numb, asleep. But pain wakes you up. Pain forces you to look at the cracks, to see the truth hiding behind the illusion. You get betrayed. Suddenly you realize who your real friends are. You lose something. Suddenly you discover what really mattered all along. You fall apart. Suddenly you understand what was holding you together in the first place. Pain teaches. Pain points. Pain exposes. But people are so busy avoiding it, medicating it, distracting themselves from it, they never stop to ask, what is this trying to tell me? And here's the twisted part. People think avoiding pain will save them, but it does the opposite. When you run from pain, you miss the lesson. When you cover it up, you silence the message. But the message doesn't go away. It just gets louder, sharper, crueler, until you're forced to listen. It's like ignoring a fire alarm and then being surprised when the whole house burns down. Pain doesn't punish. It warns. It directs. It pushes you into change you would never choose on your own. And still, people curse it, hate it, fight it, as if it's the enemy. But pain isn't the enemy. Stagnation is. Ignorance is. Refusing to change, refusing to grow. That's the real punishment. Pain is the only thing strong enough to shake you out of that sleep. Look at the scars you carry. Physical, emotional, invisible. Every single one of them has a story. A story that shaped you, that carved something into you, that made you see the world differently. Without those scars, you wouldn't be who you are right now. You might not even be alive. But in the moment, you couldn't see it. All you saw was the suffering, the hurt, the anger. Only later, when the smoke cleared, did you realize. Pain was the teacher you never asked for, but the only one who told you the truth. The truth about yourself, about people, about life. But most people don't get there, because they don't want to listen. They'd rather wallow in the story of being punished, being unlucky, being cursed. It makes them feel special in a twisted way. It gives them an excuse to stay broken, to stay bitter, to never grow. They don't want to see pain as a message, because that means responsibility. That means you can't just sit there. You have to act. You have to change. You have to admit something needs to be different. And that's harder than complaining. That's harder than playing the victim. But the truth doesn't bend just because it's uncomfortable. Pain still speaks, whether you want to hear it or not. It speaks through heartbreak, through failure, through loneliness, through disappointment. It speaks through your body when you've been ignoring your health. It speaks through your mind when you've been ignoring your peace. It speaks through your soul when you've been ignoring your purpose. Every ache, every crack, every sleepless night, every tear, it's not random. It's not meaningless. It's not punishment. It's a message written in a language you keep pretending you don't understand. But deep down, you do. You just don't like what it's saying. Timing is never accidental. Yet most people walk through life as if everything is random, as if moments fall out of the sky by chance. They call it coincidence. They call it luck. They call it bad fortune. They'll say, "Oh, that just happened," like it means nothing. But if you look close enough, if you really pay attention, you'll notice something. Every encounter, every delay, every sudden twist in your path carries weight. Timing is the one thing you can't control, yet it controls everything. It decides when the doors open, when they slam shut, when someone enters your life, and when they leave. But people fight it. They hate waiting. They hate not being in control. They want everything now. Success now, love now, answers now. They push, they pull, they force things before their time. And then they wonder why it all collapses. A seed doesn't turn into a tree overnight, does it? It needs a seasoned soil. Storms, sunshine, time. But people don't want seasons, they want shortcuts. They don't realize that when you grab what isn't ready, it breaks in your hands. And sometimes, when things fall apart, when opportunities slip away, it isn't because you weren't good enough. It's because the timing wasn't ready. The pieces weren't aligned. And no matter how much you scream at the sky, no matter how much you stomp your feet, you can't force the universe to move on your schedule. Now here's the funny thing. Timing works in silence. You don't see the gears turning. You don't see the hidden strings being pulled. You only see the result. One door opens, another closes, and suddenly you're standing somewhere you didn't expect. And that's when you realize, if that door had opened earlier, you wouldn't have been ready. If that person had stayed, you wouldn't have grown. If that opportunity had come too soon, it would have destroyed you. Timing protects you in ways you'll never understand in the moment. It delays you, not to punish, but to prepare. But most people don't believe that. They look at the delay, and they call it failure. They look at the waiting, and they call it wasted time. They look at rejection, and they call it proof that they're not worthy. They can't see that timing is working behind the curtain, shaping the stage before they step on it. They think life is against them, when in reality, life is saving them from themselves. Think about it. The heartbreak that shattered you. Maybe it came to keep you from marrying the wrong person. The job you lost. Maybe it pushed you toward the path you were actually meant to walk. The friend who betrayed you. Maybe they were removed because their role in your story was finished. Timing isn't accidental, it's intentional. Painful, yes. Confusing, yes. But always intentional. The dangerous part is that you never realize it until later. In the moment, it feels cruel. It feels like the universe is laughing at you, stripping you of everything you wanted. But then time passes, perspective shifts, and suddenly you see it. The delay made sense. The rejection had purpose. The waiting built strength you didn't know you needed. Timing is like a puzzle. You don't see the picture when you're holding one piece. You only understand when you look back and see how all the pieces fit together. But people rarely look back with gratitude. They stay bitter, angry, resentful that life didn't go their way. They miss the bigger story because they're too focused on their tiny scene. They demand control when the truth is, control is an illusion. You're not meant to control timing. You're meant to trust it. That's the hardest part. Trusting the pauses, trusting the detours. Trusting that the silence between chapters is just as important as the chapters themselves. But most people can't. They panic in the silence. They scratch at doors that were already locked. They chase people who were already gone. And all it does is exhaust them, break them, leave them even emptier than before. Timing has a way of humbling you. It strips away your illusion of control. It reminds you that no matter how clever, how powerful, how desperate you are, there are forces moving that are bigger than you. And maybe that's the point. To remind you that you're not running the show. You're part of something larger, something that only reveals itself when the time is right. Strength is born in solitude, not in the crowd, not in the applause, not in the comfort of having people clap for you when things go right. Real strength doesn't grow where it's easy. It grows where it's empty, where the room is quiet, where the nights are long, where nobody's checking in to see if you're okay. People love to look strong when others are watching. They puff up their chest, they smile wide, they talk big. But take away the audience, strip away the noise, and watch what's left. That's where you find out if strength is real or just a costume. See, solitude is a mirror. It reflects back everything you've been trying to hide with distractions. When it's just you and your thoughts, there's no mask, no performance, no escape. And most people can't handle that. They run from solitude because it exposes them. It shows them how weak they really are without validation. It shows them the cracks they've been covering up with laughter, with company, with endless noise. That's why so many people stay busy. They're terrified of being alone with themselves. They know the silence will reveal them. But here's the thing. If you can endure that silence, if you can sit in it without breaking, that's where the transformation happens. Solitude forges you in ways nothing else can. It makes you face your fears, your insecurities, your doubts. It forces you to answer questions no one else can answer for you. Who are you when nobody's watching? What do you believe when the world's not shouting in your ear? What do you really want when there's no one to impress? These are questions people spend their whole lives avoiding. But solitude doesn't let you run. It corners you, stares you down, and waits for your answer. And the answers hurt. They cut. They break you before they build you. But that's the price of real strength. It's never given. It's carved out of pain, loneliness, struggle. The strongest people aren't the ones who had endless support, endless company, endless applause. They're the ones who were abandoned, overlooked, underestimated. They're the ones who learned how to stand when no one was holding them up. They're the ones who discovered that the only voice they could rely on was their own. That's strength. Not the fake kind people parade around in public, but the kind built in silence, tested in darkness. Most people will never find it because most people can't stay in solitude long enough to grow. They need noise. They need attention. They need someone else to keep them from collapsing. And maybe that works for a while, but sooner or later, the world strips that away. People leave, crowds scatter, applause fades. Then you're left with yourself. And if you never built strength in solitude, that's when you break. You crumble because you never learned how to stand alone. But if you've been there before, alone, silent, stripped of everything, you know something the crowd doesn't. You know you can survive it. You know you don't need constant approval, constant company, constant validation to keep breathing. You've already walked through the fire of solitude, and it burned you, yes. But it also hardened you. It gave you a backbone no one else could give you. It gave you a kind of quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that just is. Strength born in solitude is untouchable because it doesn't rely on circumstances. Take away the job. Take away the friends, take away the comfort. It remains, because it was never built on those things to begin with. It was built on nights when you had nothing but your own mind, and you still didn't quit. It was built on mornings when you woke up with no one cheering and still kept moving forward. It was built in the silence that most people run from, but you endured. That's why solitude is the birthplace of strength. It strips you bare. It breaks you down. It teaches you what you're made of. And once you've learned that, once you've survived that, you carry it forever. Faith grows in uncertainty, not in the moments when everything is clear. Not when the plan is laid out, not when the road is smooth and the answers come easy. Faith doesn't need to exist when you already know what's going to happen. No, it only breathes, only thrives. When the ground under your feet is shaking, when the future is hidden, when every step feels like a gamble. People say they have faith, but what they really mean is they feel safe. They believe as long as things look good, as long as the numbers add up, as long as the pieces fall into place. But take that away, strip them of certainty, and watch how fast their so-called faith collapses. Uncertainty is the furnace. It's the place where faith is tested, stretched, pushed until it either breaks or becomes unshakable. And people hate it. They hate the not knowing, the waiting, the silence. They want guarantees, proof, evidence. They want life to show them the outcome before they take the first step. But that's not how faith works. Faith is stepping out when the light is gone, when the path is invisible, when your knees are trembling and your mind is screaming at you to turn back. Faith doesn't silence fear, it walks with it. It doesn't erase doubt, it moves through it. That's why uncertainty is necessary, because without it, you'd never need faith in the first place. Think about it. Every great moment of growth, every transformation in your life happened in uncertainty. You didn't know if you'd make it. You didn't know if you'd survive the heartbreak, the failure, the loss, the disappointment. But you kept moving. You trusted something bigger than yourself, something you couldn't see, something you couldn't measure. And looking back, you realize that it was in those exact moments, those sleepless nights, those anxious days, those terrifying choices, that your faith grew roots. Stronger than before, deeper than before, real. But most people fight uncertainty. They demand clarity before they move, and when they don't get it, they freeze. They think waiting for certainty will save them, but it only keeps them stuck. Faith isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about trusting while you're still standing in the rain. Trusting that there's a reason for the storm, even if you don't see it yet. Trusting that the darkness won't last forever, even if you can't see the dawn. Trusting that the path is still leading you somewhere, even if you can't see where your next step lands. That's where faith grows. Inside the questions, not the answers. The world will tell you uncertainty is weakness, something to avoid at all costs. But the truth is, uncertainty is the training ground. It strips you of illusions of control, of your little safety nets. It forces you to lean on something beyond yourself. That's the beauty of it. Faith doesn't need proof, it creates proof. Faith doesn't wait for the door to open. It walks up to the locked door and keeps knocking, believing it wasn't locked for nothing. And sometimes the door opens. Sometimes it doesn't, but either way, your faith grows stronger because you dared to trust without guarantees. The irony is, the people who demand certainty before they move never find it. Life doesn't hand out guarantees. It doesn't hand out maps with every twist and turn marked in red. All it gives you is the moment in front of you and the whisper that tells you to take the step anyway. And if you wait too long, the moment passes. That's the danger of clinging to certainty. It robs you of opportunities, of growth, of transformation. You sit still, waiting for a sign, while life keeps moving without you. Faith, on the other hand, doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It acts in the dark. It leaps when everything inside you says stay put. And in doing so, it proves itself. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, yes. It will shake you, break you, strip you of everything you thought you needed. But it will also teach you to trust in ways comfort never could. It will teach you that faith isn't fragile, it isn't blind, it's power. Power to keep walking, power to keep believing, power to keep hoping even when everything screams that you should quit. That's why faith doesn't grow in the light of certainty. It grows in the shadows of doubt, in the fog of the unknown, in the silence where answers don't come. They say there's always someone, hidden among the noise, the chaos, the endless sea of faces, who carries a weight heavier than the rest. Not because they asked for it, not because they were ready for it, but because something out there decided they were the one, the chosen one. The strange part is, you don't feel chosen when it happens. You feel broken, lost, even cursed. But that's the test, isn't it? To see if you'll hear the voice that calls when everyone else is too distracted to notice. To see if you'll listen when the world would rather you stay deaf. To see if you'll rise when every part of you wants to sink. Being chosen feels more like a burden than a gift. People love the idea of destiny, of being picked out of the crowd, of being the one who matters. They romanticize it. Dress it up in gold and glory. Make it sound like a crown placed gently on your head. But the truth, it feels nothing like that. It feels like a weight pressing down on your shoulders, a target painted on your back, a voice whispering in your ear that you can't afford to fail. It doesn't feel like privilege. It feels like punishment. When the world looks at you as the one, they don't see your weakness, your doubts, your nights spent staring at the ceiling wondering if you're enough. They only see the role. They only see the expectations. And those expectations don't stop. They grow. They multiply. Every step you take, every word you speak, every mistake you make, it's all magnified. Suddenly, you're not allowed to be human. You're not allowed to stumble. You're supposed to carry it all with grace, as if being chosen erased your flaws. But the flaws remain sharper than ever. The cruel part is how isolating it feels. Everyone wants to be near the chosen one, but no one wants to understand the cost. They admire the light, but they never notice the shadow that comes with it. You smile. You nod. You pretend to be strong, while inside you're cracking under the weight of something you never asked for. And that's the truth about being chosen. It doesn't come with your permission. It comes uninvited, and you're left wondering why you, why now, why this. You don't feel blessed. You feel cursed. Every victory feels smaller than the pressure waiting around the corner. Every compliment feels hollow compared to the silence of doubt echoing inside your chest. People assume you're lucky, but luck doesn't feel like this. Luck doesn't keep you awake at night. Luck doesn't make you question if every move you make is the wrong one. Being chosen feels less like fortune and more like a sentence. What no one tells you is that the burden follows you everywhere. It's not just in the big moments, it's in the quiet ones too. You can't sit still. You can't breathe. You can't simply exist without feeling the weight pressing in. You're haunted by the fear of disappointing, the very force that put you here. And the worst part, you don't even know if that force is kind, or cruel, or simply indifferent. You just know it's watching, waiting, judging whether you'll rise to the role you never asked for. The world loves the idea of chosen ones because it makes for a good story. A hero, a savior, someone to believe in. But the story is written from the outside. From the inside, it doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like chains. It feels like your choices are no longer yours. Like every step forward is already decided. Like you're trapped in a script you didn't write. And yet, you're expected to perform it perfectly. The applause is for the role, never for the person trapped beneath it. People will never see the cracks. They'll never know the nights you nearly gave up. The mornings you wished the burden would pass to someone else. They'll never see the way your chest tightens when you realize that failure isn't just about you. It drags everyone else down with it. That's what being chosen really means. It means you don't get the luxury of collapsing. It means your pain is irrelevant. Your fear is irrelevant. Your humanity is irrelevant. All that matters is that you keep carrying what was thrown at you. And deep down, you realize the cruelest truth of all. Being chosen doesn't mean you were the strongest, or the smartest, or the best. It just means you were there. And now, whether you're ready or not, whether you like it or not, you're carrying a weight that feels less like a crown and more like a curse. The test is hidden inside struggle and doubt. It never arrives dressed like a test, never comes with a warning label, never announces itself with flashing lights. No, it shows up disguised as failure, as pain, as confusion that gnaws at you, until you're left staring at yourself in the mirror, wondering if you're even built for this. The test is subtle, cruelly quiet, and it knows exactly where to press. It doesn't challenge your strengths. It challenges the softest, weakest, most fragile parts of you. You wait for tests to look like battles with enemies, competitions you can win, obstacles you can smash through with brute force. But the real test is more invisible. It hides inside sleepless nights where your chest feels heavy and you can't explain why. It hides in the questions that loop in your head. What if I'm not enough? What if I fail? What if I was never supposed to be here in the first place? The test thrives on those whispers because they dig deeper than any blade could. Struggle is the ground it grows from. The moments you hate most, the ones where nothing works, where everything you try crumbles in your hands. That's where the test waits. Not to see if you'll succeed easily, but to see if you'll keep going when success looks impossible. Struggle isn't the punishment, it's the proof. It's the stage where you reveal whether you'll cave in or crawl forward. Even bleeding, even broken, doubt is the weapon it uses. You can face pain. You can endure exhaustion. But doubt attacks differently. Doubt doesn't come from outside. It grows inside your own chest. It wears your voice, speaks in your tone, convinces you to stop before anyone else even tries to stop you. It tells you you're unworthy, that the weight is too heavy, that the role is meant for someone else. And the more you listen, the more real it feels. Doubt is clever like that. It makes you believe you're saving yourself from failure, when really, you're letting yourself collapse. That's the trap of the test. It hides in everyday life. People expect it to be one dramatic moment, one grand challenge where everything is clear. But it's not. It's slow, grinding, relentless. It shows up in the thousand small decisions you make when no one is watching. Do you push forward when nothing is changing? Do you keep speaking when no one is listening? Do you hold your ground when every bone in your body begs you to quit? Those choices, invisible to the world, define whether you pass or fail. Most people don't even realize they're being tested until it's over. They think they're just unlucky, just cursed, just going through another miserable day. They don't see that the struggle itself was the trial. They don't see that the doubt they let win was the question they answered wrong. And by the time they realize it, the chance is gone. The test never repeats itself in the same way twice. Once you fail to face it, it moves on, leaving you to wonder what could have been if you had endured a little longer. But for the ones who face it, the test reshapes them, not because they beat it easily, not because they were fearless, but because they stood inside the storm and refused to be blown away. They let the struggle carve into them. They let the doubt scream in their ears, and still they moved. Every step forward was an answer. Every refusal to quit was a declaration. And in the end, the test didn't vanish. It revealed. It revealed that the chosen one isn't the one who never struggles or doubts. It's the one who doesn't let struggle and doubt decide who they become. The test was never about perfection. It was about endurance. It was about proving to yourself, not to the world, that when the weight pressed hardest, when the voice inside you told you to give up, you didn't. That's where the truth hides. That's where the test always was. Few can hear the call beneath the noise. The world is loud, unbearably loud, filled with endless chatter, distractions, empty promises, and the constant hum of meaningless voices competing to drown each other out. Everyone talks, but no one listens. Everyone screams for attention, but no one hears what actually matters. And somewhere buried beneath that chaos, there's a call, quiet, sharp, meant for you. But only a handful ever notice it, and fewer still have the courage to answer. It doesn't sound like what you expect. It doesn't come in thunder, doesn't arrive with fireworks or angels or booming certainty. No, the call comes in whispers, in subtle tugs that you almost mistake for your own thoughts. It speaks when you're alone, when the noise fades for just a moment, when you're staring into the dark, asking yourself if this is all there is. The call doesn't demand, it invites. But it's easy to miss because it doesn't fight the noise. It waits to see if you'll listen. Most people never do. They bury themselves in distractions, so they never have to hear it. They drown their doubts with constant entertainment, endless scrolling, shallow conversations that fill the silence, but never touch the soul. They think the noise keeps them safe, but really it keeps them deaf. Deaf to the one thing that could change everything. Deaf to the quiet message that could give their suffering meaning. The call doesn't beg for your attention. It tests it. It wants to see if you'll sift through the static, if you'll strip away the voices of the crowd, if you'll trust the faint signal no one else seems to notice. That's why so few hear it. Because listening requires effort, discipline, and the terrifying willingness to silence everything else. And silence, for most, is unbearable. Silence forces them to confront what they've been running from. Silence makes the call louder. And that frightens them more than anything. For the rare ones who hear it, life changes instantly. Because once you recognize the call, you can't unhear it. You can't go back to pretending the noise is enough. You realize the parties, the conversations, the hollow ambitions. They were just echoes to keep you distracted. The call cuts through all of that, sharper than a blade, and it leaves you exposed. Exposed to the truth that maybe you were meant for more. Exposed to the truth that the world's chaos was designed to keep you from noticing your own potential. But hearing the call is only half the battle. The real weight comes when you realize how alone it makes you. The crowd will never understand why you turn down the volume, why you stop chasing the same empty prizes, why you start walking a road that looks dangerous, foolish, even insane to them. They'll mock you, doubt you, pressure you to return to the noise. Because your silence unsettles them. Your attention to the call reminds them of the one they ignored. The call is dangerous because it demands change. Once you hear it, you can't stay the same. You can't know that you've been chosen, nudged, pulled toward something bigger. And that's why most never listen. Because deep down, they know that if they do, they'll have to leave behind everything familiar. They'll have to abandon the noise that numbs them. They'll have to face the responsibility of becoming who they were meant to be. And that responsibility terrifies them more than the chaos ever did. Few can hear the call beneath the noise because few are brave enough to go looking for it. Fewer still are willing to let it disrupt their lives. But the ones who do, they discover what the rest of the world will never know. They discover that the noise was never the truth. It was the cage, and the call was the key waiting quietly for them to finally listen. Listening requires courage, not certainty. People think they need to have all the answers before they move, that clarity must come first, that the path should reveal itself in bright lights before they take a single step. But it never works that way. The call never arrives with a map. It doesn't hand you instructions or proof that you'll succeed. It's just a voice, faint and unsettling, daring you to trust it. And most people ignore it because they're waiting for certainty that never comes. Certainty is comforting. It makes you feel in control, safe, untouchable. But certainty is also an illusion. The world shifts too quickly, breaks too easily, turns on you without warning. Certainty convinces you that you can predict tomorrow, but courage accepts that you can't. Courage moves anyway. It doesn't need guarantees. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need anyone else to understand. Courage hears the whisper, feels the fear, and takes the step regardless. Listening takes courage because it means shutting off the noise that everyone else clings to. It means standing in silence long enough to hear what you were meant to hear, even if it rattles you, even if it demands something you don't feel ready to give. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that fear won't be the one making choices for you. And when you listen to that quiet pull, you're making a choice that defies everything the crowd lives by. The crowd thrives on certainty. They want guarantees, safety nets, step-by-step directions. They want to know that if they follow the script, they'll get the reward. That's why they never hear the call. Because the call doesn't come with safety nets. It comes with risk. And courage is rare. It's rare because it costs too much. It costs comfort. It costs approval. It costs the illusion of control that most people build their lives around. Listening demands you pay that price. The call tests whether you're willing to trade certainty for possibility. It asks if you're bold enough to chase something invisible, something unproven, something that may destroy you just as easily as it may elevate you. That's why listening is terrifying. It feels like stepping off a cliff blindfolded, trusting that the ground will rise to meet you. And no one wants to feel that vulnerable. No one wants to risk becoming the fool. So they drown the call in noise, tell themselves it was nothing, and crawl back into the safety of certainty that never truly existed. But the irony is, those who wait for certainty never move. They circle the same routines, repeat the same mistakes, live the same shallow days until time runs out. And when it does, they realize certainty betrayed them. Certainty gave them nothing but the comfort of stagnation. Courage, on the other hand, at least gives you movement. It gives you the chance to find out who you could have been. It gives you the chance to step into a life that doesn't just repeat itself endlessly. Listening requires courage because it's active, not passive. You can't just hear the call and nod along. You have to act. You have to take the risk. To walk into the unknown, to gamble everything on the possibility that the whisper meant something, and that gamble separates the chosen from the crowd. Not intelligence, not talent, not certainty, just the raw courage to trust the call, even when nothing makes sense. People think courage is about grand gestures, about charging into danger with no fear. But real courage is quieter. It's choosing to listen when it would be easier to pretend you didn't hear. It's taking the first step when your legs are shaking. It's admitting you don't know the outcome and moving forward anyway. That's the courage the call demands. And without it, the whisper fades, and the chance dies before it ever had the chance to grow. Rising happens when sinking feels easier. Anyone can stand tall when the ground is steady, when the light is warm, when the world feels kind. But that's not what life does, not for long. It drags you down, pulls at your ankles, whispers in your ear that it would be simpler, so much simpler, to just let go, to sink into the comfort of giving up, to stop fighting, stop struggling, stop clawing for air. And in that moment, when surrender feels like the natural choice, rising demands everything from you. It doesn't look glamorous. Rising isn't some cinematic moment where the music swells and the world cheers. Rising is ugly. It's choking on your own breath. It's dragging yourself across the floor when every muscle screams for rest. It's standing on broken legs while your mind begs you to collapse. Sinking feels gentle compared to that. Sinking is silence, escape, relief. Rising is pain, and that's why so few choose it. You don't rise because it's comfortable. You rise because something deep inside refuses to die. You rise because even in the middle of despair, some buried part of you still claws toward the light. It's not about strength. It's about defiance. It's about spitting in the face of the voice that says, "You're finished." It's about moving upward even when gravity has every reason to believe it's already won. The temptation to sink is constant. Life makes it easy. Disappointment after disappointment, failure after failure, the weight of expectations pressing down until you can barely breathe. People walk away, promises collapse, and everything you built starts to rot in your hands. And the whisper grows louder, why keep fighting? Why not just let yourself slip under and disappear? That voice is seductive because it offers peace, but it's the peace of surrender. And surrender erases everything you could have been. Rising isn't about ignoring the urge to sink. It's about facing it, staring it in the eye, and deciding that even though every part of you aches for rest, you'll keep going. You'll drag your body forward when your soul feels empty. You'll scream back at the silence that tells you no one cares. You'll rise, not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to prove that you weren't built to break as easily as life hoped you would. What makes rising powerful is that no one can do it for you. People can encourage you, push you, even throw ropes down into the pit, but in the end, you're the one who has to climb. And climbing feels impossible when sinking is just one small surrender away. That's why rising matters, because every inch you drag yourself upward is yours. Every breath you steal back from despair is proof that you are still here, still alive, still fighting against a world that wanted you buried. Most people don't rise because they don't even recognize the moment they're sinking. They disguise it as comfort, as rest, as acceptance. They call it moving on, letting go, being realistic, but deep down, they know the truth. They didn't rise because it was too hard. They didn't rise because sinking gave them an excuse to stop. Rising is brutal honesty. It forces you to admit how much it hurts, how much you've lost, and still choose to move anyway. And every time you rise, something changes. Not in the world. Sometimes it stays just as cruel, just as heavy, but in you. You become the kind of person who can take the worst and still refuse to vanish. You discover a strength you didn't know existed, not the kind that wins applause, but the kind that survives when applause has long disappeared. You rise, and even if no one sees it, Even if no one claps, it means you didn't sink. And in a world that feeds on your collapse, that alone is victory. Purpose reveals itself only through trials. People love to imagine that life will hand them a neatly wrapped meaning, a voice in the sky, a clear map that tells them who they are and what they're meant to do. But life doesn't waste time with such luxuries. It prefers a crueler method. It strips you bare, takes what you love, burns what you thought was permanent, and then it waits. It waits to see if you'll crawl through the fire, if you'll bleed on the stones, if you'll keep moving when you have no reason left to. That's when purpose begins to whisper. Not before. Never before. You see, trials aren't accidents. They're the design. Without them, you'd remain soft, untested, unaware of the edges you carry. Everyone wants meaning, but no one wants the suffering that sharpens it. They want the crown without the scars, the glory without the wounds. But purpose refuses to reveal itself to the comfortable. It hides in the places you don't want to go, behind the losses you swore would destroy you. And only by stepping into that furnace do you start to uncover why you were ever here in the first place. Think about the moments when you questioned everything, when the job slipped away, when the person you trusted turned their back, when the world made a mockery of your effort. In that moment, it felt like a cruel joke, meaningless pain. But looking back, wasn't that the very moment you discovered what you were capable of? Didn't it peel back a layer of you that never would have existed otherwise? That's purpose forming in the dark, hidden in the agony you thought had no point. The truth is, purpose isn't found in books, in speeches, in quiet reflection. It's earned in the chaos. It's earned when you drag yourself up after being beaten down. It's earned when you stand in the wreckage of who you thought you were and choose to keep breathing. That's where it hides, in the fractures of your old self, in the ashes of what was burned away. Trials reveal the blueprint you didn't know you carried. They push you to the edge, so you can finally see the shape of the cliff. They expose the weaknesses you ignored, the lies you told yourself, the masks you wore. They rip them off until only the raw, untamed version of you is left. And that version, the scared, trembling, furious one, is the only one strong enough to recognize purpose when it finally shows its face. Most people run from their trials. They look for shortcuts, ways to bypass the fire, ways to numb the sting. They drink, they scroll, they pretend, they hide. And in doing so, they also run from their purpose. Because the two are inseparable. If you dodge one, you lose the other. If you embrace one, you earn the other. Life isn't cruel because it hates you. It's cruel because that's the only way to carve you into something real. And here's the part no one likes to admit. Purpose doesn't always look glorious. Sometimes it's not about leading armies, changing the world, or leaving a name etched in history. Sometimes it's about surviving long enough to prove the darkness didn't consume you. Sometimes it's about being the quiet proof that a broken human can still walk forward, can still rise, can still refuse to vanish. And that, too, is purpose. The irony is that you don't recognize it while you're in the middle of the trial. All you see is pain. All you feel is loss. It's only afterward, when the dust settles, when you're standing there scarred but alive, that you realize what it gave you. That's when you understand it wasn't meaningless. That's when you see that every bruise, every cut, every night you thought you'd never make it through was the only language purpose speaks.